it's Jennifer from Fiberflux. In this video, we're going to learn how to crochet this gorgeous rainbow sherbet baby blanket. This is a simple little corner-to-corner blanket using a self-striping yarn, and it's a very, very simple blanket to make. We're going to walk through it step by step, both the increase portion of the C2C and the decrease portion. The yarn does all the work for you, and it's just such a happy little blanket. I will put a chart on the Fiberflux blog of common blanket sizes because you can make this as big as you want. I am calling it a baby blanket because of its size, but and the colors are just so happy for a little person, but you can really make this any size you like. Speaking of sizes, the finished blanket is about 36 inches by 36 inches. This is a square blanket because we're going corner to corner on that. If you'd like to see in the future a rectangular corner-to-corner blanket, please let me know in the comments. And but this one is about 36 inches by 36 inches. So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, a ruler or tape measure is super helpful to kind of measure as you go along. You'll also need a 6mm J crochet hook. I'm going to be using my Furls Odyssey in the blue, and just in case you're wondering, I usually get a lot of questions about the hook I'm using, and I can put the link down below for that as well. And for the yarn, let's look at this pretty yarn that I have here. This is called Super Saver Stripes by Red Heart. It is a self-striping yarn. I'm going to be using a color called Retro Stripe, and I'm going to be using 4 skeins of this. Now, the Super Saver comes in lots of different colors and styles. There's some tweedy looking yarn, there's self-striping like this one, there's some ombres, etc. But the Super Saver Stripes comes in a skein that's 236 yards. Now sometimes the yardage may vary depending on which of the Super Saver that you use, whether you use the solids or stripes, etc. But these particular ones, the stripes, use 236 yards per skein, and I'm going to be using 4 of those. And again, this is the Retro Stripe. Okay, now this is shades of light blue, like a mint green, lime, pink, yellow, really fun colorway, but feel free to use any colors you like. Because we're going to be doing a corner to corner blanket, we're going to be using roughly half the yarn to do our increase and the other half of the yarn to do the decrease portion of our blanket. And we'll get into more of that in just a moment. So let's get started and jump right in. So I have my hook and my yarn. I got the first ball of yarn. Now we're going to be using the first 2 balls to do the increase portion, and then when we come back in on our square, we're going to use the last 2 balls of yarn. So I pulled out a little bit, and this is a self-striping yarn like I mentioned before, so you're going to get some really nice fun color changes. And because we're doing a blanket that we're working in rows and working out and then back in, it'll make for some really pretty striping in our blanket without any effort at all. So we're going to start at the bottom point of our square. This will be a square blanket, and we're going to continue upward and outward to create, it'll be a triangle shape with the first 2 balls of yarn. And then we're going to do the decrease portion and come inward with the last 2 balls of yarn. So let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing a little bit more clearly. And I grabbed some yarn. So what we're going to do first is put a slip knot on our hook. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Next, what we're going to do is chain 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So here is our starting chain. Then we're going to work a double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. So this loop here does not count. So go 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in that chain there, we're going to work a double crochet. To make a double crochet, wrap yarn around hook, insert it into that 4th chain that we just counted, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. Then we're going to work a double crochet into each of the next 2 chains as well. So work a double crochet into the next chain, and a double crochet into the chain after that, that last chain on your row. Okay? So what we're going to have now is the very beginnings of our blanket. This is the first little block that will be at the bottom. Okay? So then what we're going to do is move on to the next 2 blocks, and they'll be on either side of this first block. So what you'll want to do is chain 6. Now to make a chain, in case you're not familiar, wrap yarn around hook and just bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now we're going to work a double crochet once again into that 4th chain from the hook. So remember, this loop doesn't count, so go 1, 2, 3, and 4. So work a double crochet in that 4th chain from the hook. Once again, work a double crochet into the next chain, just like that. Double crochet into the next chain. Okay? Now, when we're starting off a corner to corner blanket, this part can be a little bit confusing for some people. So what we want to do is turn our square. See how this tail, I always go by the tail. That's what helps me, so I don't really have to know exactly how it's supposed to look. I just go by the tail. You want this tail pointing downward towards you. See how I flip that over and I have this tail facing down, okay? Okay, once you've kind of turned your block and your tail is pointing downward, this is going to be the bottom corner of your blanket moving forward. Now we need to join our 2 blocks together. So there's 2 ways you could do it. It's really a preference thing. You could join in that, see how we had that 3 double crochets? You could join in that 3rd double crochet. Some people like to join in the space. It's up to you. I like to do that 3rd double crochet. So you could try both and kind of see what works best for you, your yarn, and your tension. But I like to do that so that you can see those double crochets look like rungs of a ladder, okay? So if you go that 3rd rung up on your ladder, join right in that double crochet, okay? So insert the hook, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And we have 2 blocks now, okay? Then what we want to do is chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to work 3 double crochets into our turning chain space. So let me get a little bit more yarn. We're still on the pink stripe, so we're going to have a nice little pink corner here. Okay, so in this turning chain space, which is now on its side, we're going to work 3 double crochets into that turning chain space. So 1, 2, and 3. Just like that, okay? So at this time, it should look sort of like a heart. And remember, this tail is going to be pointing downward, okay? That's how you know everything's kind of configured properly. Okay, so moving forward, we're just going to be repeating row 2. So remember, row 1 was this first block with the tail. Row 2 was the next 2 blocks that we did. So we're going to just repeat row 2, but let's do a couple rows together just because this beginning part, it looks so differently, and then once you get rolling, it looks very similar moving forward, okay? So what we're going to do is chain 6 once again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we're going to do what we did before. We're going to do a double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Work your double crochet into that 4th chain from the hook. Work a double crochet into the next chain. And work a double crochet into the chain after that. Okay, so we're creating that next block. Now you want to make sure, once again, that tail, see how our tail is kind of turned? You want that to be pointing downward, okay? And then go into that double crochet, count 1, 2, 3 rungs up on your ladder, and that stitch at the top there, we're going to slip stitch to join our blocks, okay? See, we now have another block. Then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And remember, work 3 double crochets into that turning chain space. Remember, that turning chain is on its side right now. We're going to work 3 double crochets into there. So 1, 2, and 3. Just like that. Okay, now we need to join that block. So remember, count 3 of your double crochets, that topmost double crochet, the one that's right below that turning chain, it's right there, should be like a loop. Join with a slip stitch, and then once again chain 3. 1, 2, 3, And here we are back at our turning chain space. We're going to work 3 double crochets into that turning chain space. 1 double crochet, 1, and then your next double crochet, 2, and then the last double crochet, 3. Okay? So row 3 is complete. And as you can see, we're simply just repeating what we did in row 2, but because we're increasing, you're going to be adding more blocks per row. Okay? Let's do one more together. And then we can move forward and work on our increase part on our own and keep repeating our rows. And then what we'll do is rejoin for the decrease part, okay? So let's do that one more time together. We'll do row 4 together. And again, we're just repeating row 2, what we learned in row 2. So what you want to do is chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You're going to do this at the beginning of every row. And then work a double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Work that double crochet, just like that. Work a double crochet into the next chain. Work a double crochet into the next chain. And remember, you want to get that tail pointing the right way. So we have to turn it a little bit to get everything straightened out. And what we're going to do is count, remember, our rungs of our ladder. That stitch right there, the topmost one right before you get to the turning chain. We're going to slip stitch to join. And now we're ready to work across our row, okay? So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, work 3 double crochet into the turning chain space. 1, 2, and 3. Get a little bit more yarn here. And then we're going to join with a slip stitch, same thing we've been doing, into that double crochet there. Chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Once again, join with a slip stitch. And you can see the tones of my pink have very slightly changed. So we may be approaching a new color, which is very exciting to me at least. Okay, so last box of the row, chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Work 3 double crochets into that turning chain space. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay? So we've done row 1 where we created our box. We did row 2 where we added 2 more boxes and created that heart shape. Row 3 we added 3 across, 4 we added 4 across. So you can see we have a nice little triangle going. Now like I said before, you're going to work on your increase and just repeat row 2. So if you need to see row 2 again, just back up the video. There's also a setting where you can kind of slow-mo the video if you need to. You can rewatch any part of this as many times as you like. So what I want you to do next is to repeat row 2 over and over and over again until you used 1 ball of yarn. Let me back up a little out of here. And then you've used a second ball of yarn. Okay, so once you've done that part and you have your you'll have a big giant triangle. And then once you've used up that yarn, what you'll want to do is grab your other 2 balls of yarn, and we're going to learn how to do the decrease portion next. So let's work on our increase, and then we're going to bring our square back in with the next 2 balls of yarn, okay? So I'm going to keep repeating row 2 over and over and over again until I used up all this beautiful yarn, and then we'll rejoin and learn how to decrease next. So here is roughly half of our blanket. We've come a long way. It looks so beautiful. It's just a lovely baby size at this time, and I've used roughly half the yarn. As you can see here, it's actually a little less than half. This is the end of the second skein. I like to give myself just a little cushion just in case the skeins aren't exactly the same. They normally are. I just like to give myself that little cushion just in case, So what we want to do now is I just finished my last increase row, and now we're ready to come back and decrease. So once you've finished your row, I'm at the very end of my row here, what you want to do is turn your work. Okay, so I'm just going to flip it over. And now the triangle is going the other way. So the first thing we want to do to decrease is we're going to work, see these double crochets that we did? We're going to work a slip stitch into each one of these double crochets. So let me just zoom in so you can see. Now I wanted to add as a side note, I'm still using the J hook. I'm just using a different J hook. I tend to grab whatever hook is around, so I just want to let you know it's still the J hook. Okay, so what we want to do is insert the hook into that first double crochet, bring up a loop. Now we're going to bring that loop through the loop that's already on our hook. Okay, and I think I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more to show you. There we go. Now work a slip stitch in the next double crochet and a slip stitch in the next double crochet. So each of these 3 double crochets you want to work a slip stitch. Then we're going to work a slip stitch in this turning chain space. See, we had our 3 double crochets and then we have that turning chain in that space. We're going to work a slip stitch in that turning chain space. Okay? Then what we want to do is chain 3. So you want to maybe turn your work at this point so that it's kind of facing upward for you. It's just a little bit easier to work with. So we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then what we want to do is work 3 double crochets into that turning chain space. So this part's going to seem a little bit more familiar. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, and 3 double crochet, just like that. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of work it the same way we've been working. So go into that next turning chain space of that next block, work a slip stitch into that space, just like that, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and work your 3 double crochets into that turning chain space. Alright, so this is pretty much the way we've been working the rest of the blanket so far. It's just the beginning of the row. When you start to decrease, it just looks a little bit different. And as you can see, we now have, instead of the block being over here, we now are starting to develop a flat side that we're going to be decreasing our blanket, okay? So just keep doing this. We'll do a few of these together. Slip stitch into the next turning chain space and chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then work your 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Slip stitch into the next block in that turning chain space and chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and work your 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to continue doing this all the way across, and then we're going to rejoin, and I'm going to show you. See how you can see it's starting at a flat side up the side here? We're going to rejoin, and I'm going to show you how to finish off the row. Just working those last stitches of that last block, and then to finish off the row, what we're going to do is join these 2 blocks together. Now let me get this up out of the bottom there, that we can have a plain background. There we go. So what we're going to do is join with a slip stitch in the turning chain space to finish off the row, and then that will give you a straight side on here. So just as a refresher, to start up again on the next row for your decrease, turn your work, and what you're going to do is you're going to slip stitch into each one of these double crochets. Remember this part? So slip stitch, into that double crochet, slip stitch into the 3rd double crochet, and then slip stitch into that turning chain space. Remember that? And then you might need to turn it a little bit. I like to turn it, and then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And work your 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and you'll start to get a straight side of your blanket. going up this way as well. So just keep repeating that decrease row, and once we get towards the top point of our blanket, when we come back up with that decrease, we're going to rejoin, and we're just going to finish up the top point together. Okay, so keep working that decrease until you get towards that top point, and we will work on that last little top part together. We have come all the way up to the top point of our blanket. I'm just working that last double crochet before we get to that last block. So you just work the rows the same way. It's just at the very tippy top, as you can see. There's just 2 little blocks here. So let's do this last block together. Let me put my hook back in. We're going to do the same thing, join with a slip stitch, and then turn. Let me just turn it so you can see every little thing here. So turn your work, last block, super easy, same thing we've been doing, chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Then just work your 3 double crochets in that space, 1, 2, 3. I want to just assure you this is the same hook I've been using. It's just a different style hook. Okay, it's the same size though. Sometimes I do that. I will crochet a section and then I'll pick up a different hook, but it's the same size. Okay, so then what we want to do is join with a slip stitch into that turning chain space, and then slip stitch that closed, and then our blanket is complete. So exciting. So let's do this now. Let's grab our scissors, and we're just going to simply cut the yarn. And I have a little bit left, not a ton. You can see there's just, my skein has like completely deflated. And then we're going to just wrap the yarn around the hook to fasten off and pull it through. Okay, we're going to weave this tail in together. I have my tapestry needle. Just go ahead and thread it. And what you want to do, any project where you have multicolors like this, like stripes or self-striping yarn, or you've changed colors, you want to keep your yarn tail, I have yellow here, in the same section as your tail, and that way it'll blend in very nicely and it won't stick out. If I had a hot pink tail right now and I was trying to go through here, it would really show and not look as nice. Okay, so you want to go in one direction, and then I like to come back down in the other direction just to sort of lock that tail into place, and then we're going to simply just trim that tail, and that's it. So anywhere where you've joined a new ball of yarn or began your blanket, like see down here I have one, just go ahead and weave in all the ends. Our ends are all woven in and our blanket is complete. I think this is just one of the prettiest, most happy blankets ever. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiberflux video updates. Thanks again!